Hi, everybody. My name is Rob Thomas. I'm a certified BG5 consultant. I'm a BG5 enthusiast. I just love talking about this stuff. If there is a geek in the entire community, it's me. I love geeking out about BG5 and just talking about this. And today, for a second episode, I'm lucky enough to be able to bring to you Banu Basaran from way across the world. She's over in, are you in Istanbul today?
Yep, I am.
Yeah, so she's in Istanbul, and we're going to talk today about a couple different things. Banu is a leader, and really quickly, before we even get started, Banu, will you just kind of share again with everybody who's watching who you are, a little bit about your professional background, what brought you to BG5, and then what you're going to be doing next? I want them to know what's coming.
Well, thank you for having me again, Rob. Great to be here. So I am a professional in the IT industry. For the last 22 years, I worked in the industry. And I've done marketing jobs and sales roles, and now I manage a team in several geos. I also was lucky enough to be introduced to human design and then to BG5, where my passion lies. And as I went through it, I was drawn more into it, and I ended up becoming an instructor even for the Institute, which I teach classes for right now. And I have benefited so much from this knowledge in my personal life, in my professional life, and also with my team now managing my business. So I'm also an enthusiast about it, just like you.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, Banu, for covering that. So one of the things that you talked about was your leadership role, right? And so you're in IT, and you're involved with a lot of different people, and you also mentioned that these people that you're responsible for and working with, they're not all sitting in the same office.
Correct.
Right? They're in different geographies. They're in different areas and different locations. Yep. So here we sit in 2020, the weirdest year we've had in a long time.
Definitely.
And I say that because, you know, before all of this happened, professionally, everybody was living on automatic, right? Showing up to work every single day, doing their deal, and you know, all of those things. And everybody was used to reporting to an office or being in close proximation with the teams that they're on, or and working with in close proximation the customers that they support. And then when COVID came along, that wiped all that stuff off the table. And so everything that was on automatic now became on manual, meaning we all had to think about every single thing that we were doing. Can I go get a Starbucks? Do I wear a mask? Now I got to remember to wear a mask. I can no longer go visit this customer anymore because I don't know what their policies and procedures are. I can't even go visit my team anymore, and so on. This has created a very big challenge for leaders because engagement and collaboration were already a problem that they were trying to solve. Gallup, a great organization, tons and tons of information, been around for decades. They wrote a book recently called It's the Manager. And one of the things that they found is that 85% across the world, so 85% of the workplace is disengaged. By their definition, what this means is that they have a job that they don't like, they either work for a company they don't like, or they have a boss that they don't like, and for some it was all three. And so that's 8.5 out of 10 people. Now, I'm not assuming that that's the situation on your team, but as a leader, I'd like to hear from your perspective. You know, you're enthusiastic about BG5, and the world largely has not even heard of BG5 yet. But I'd like to hear more from your perspective, given 2020, given the fact that all the conventional things have been wiped off the table, everyone's working remotely. How can BG5 bring everyone together, increase engagement, increase collaboration, and improve productivity?
Yeah, okay, so there's a lot of things that goes into your question, and I'm going to try to dissect it into some chunks maybe to make it more meaningful for the audience as well. So I think this year, this is an unprecedented time, right? And there's no normal, right? Everything is changing right now. And for all of us to be able to adapt to that, it took some effort, but then it's been months that we're into this. And I am seeing, like with my team and everything, people are right now adapting to it, right? We have learned to work remotely. We have learned to touch our partners and customers through online tools that we can use, right? And it's become a matter of how do we make things work within the new normal, actually. And during these times, I think being a manager and being able to lead, I'm not just making this comment for managers in general, but actually taking the leadership, whatever you're doing in your job, or if you have a team also leading them, it's become so important, the role of the manager and how everybody can come together and understand each other in that sense and work together in collaboration, right? Because you're not seeing people's faces, nothing is face to face, everything is online or on the phone sometimes, and it's been problematic, right? So with the BG5, I think it comes down to for a leader, right? It's actually managing your team in such a way, knowing their strengths, understanding their design, right? And then being able to coach them and manage them with that knowledge. And if they also understood the differences that they all have and treated each other with the same respect, it really makes a difference, right? Because BG5 and human design in general says we are all different, right? We're all unique, right? And then the rules and stereotypes kind of try to put everybody under the same thing. This is how a salesperson should be. This is how a marketing manager should be. This is what a great leader should do. But then we are not, unimportant things that need to fit into silos. Everybody brings their own uniqueness into the business. So being able to understand that, recognize it, and build on each other's strengths is becoming more and more important right now, really. And then you can step in here, right? I also want to give some examples around how I have benefited from it. But if you want to stop me or jump in, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, no, keep going. I want to hear more about these examples because that's, everybody that's listening to this. I want you to understand that this is not theoretical. What Banu is talking about, what I do on a daily basis, whenever I'm working with HR teams or leaders or whomever, this stuff is full on practical. You take it and you go. So yes, please continue.
So like looking at my team, and because I also take a look at their designs and how they fit into the team at large, right? So I have the salespeople, I have a marketing manager, right? And then what will happen is sometimes within the team, there problems arise, right? Communication is not easy. People understand each other wrong sometimes, and everybody has a different perspective around how things should be. But by giving people the coaching around understanding diversity and being able to bring inclusion into the team can really make a difference, right? For example, me as the manager, I do know my builders, so the generators in my team, right? And I also know their strengths. So when I try to post things to my builders, I will actually try to do it into a style that will be beneficial to them. So they could actually, in human design in BG5, we talked about the builders actually giving a response. They hear their gut response into what to do next, right? So I try to ask them questions as a leader to which they can respond from their gut. If they feel right about it, then we go ahead, right? We don't do it because our minds tell us to. Of course, we look at our numbers, right? I'm a salesperson. I drive a big business. It's not like we let go of looking at the numbers or what our minds will help us to. But then I respect that gut feeling, right? Do we go big with that partner? Do we make that investment, right? I'll pose these questions and then they respond. And if everybody is okay, to go ahead, we go ahead, right? And here's another example. For example, I have one person in my team who is an innovator. So she is, and for those of you who might not be familiar, for example, innovators, they have an aura where they could be understood as forceful. It's like their energy is pushing out, right? And they're strong characters usually too. It's in their energy, right? And people will feel it. And sometimes, for example, this person is seen as somebody who wants her way. She's too fishy. She's too direct. But me knowing that's her design, right? That is her design. And my team kind of got used to me coaching them into them being different, right? Right now, if they see her as pushy or she's trying to get her way, right? They kind of have a way of respecting it. That's how her aura works. That's how her nature is, right? They'll respect that, and they'll be more understanding to each other in that sense. And then if there are problems, like we just had a recent one where she sent an email to somebody and didn't recognize the other builder that also contributed to the same project, right? And then it was seen as she's just doing these things without informing anybody. And then like BG5 tells us, if we have an innovator, their thing is to inform, right? For example, so they can actually move easier in life without meeting resistance, right? So this is the coaching I always give to my innovator person, distance, for example. So the team kind of is also tolerating each other more, understanding each other more, recognizing they're all different, and how can they work together, actually.
That was a beautiful example. Thank you for the way that you articulated that. You brought so many things up. One of the things that I caught first was this idea of understanding who we work with, right? Understanding the other person. And, you know, diversity and inclusion are a big conversation today, just as emotional intelligence is, right? We see this all the time. You know, and a lot of the big speakers are talking a lot about this, and HR leaders, that is one of the biggest things on their plate. That's one of the top initiatives for the company is how do we improve diversity and how do we actually make this part of the fabric of who we are as a company? And then how do we include the other? Now, what you talked about was beautiful because BG5 gives us the tools to see the other, to see the things that you cannot see.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
For real. Like if all of us were cars on a lot, we could lift up the hood and see what the engine's made of. And that tells us what this car can or can't do. Same thing with an individual. There's no other system out there that can do this with such depth or accuracy. And so for leaders, they can take this tool, just like you're using it now, see the other, look at their team collectively, see how this energy works together or not, and then make a plan for that. And one of the things that I like about what you said was you're communicating to each one of these individuals in a way that they will be seen, recognized, understood, and heard. And then as a result of that, I think, and this part is theoretical, it's just my opinion, but I think that once that happens and it's happening consistently, because that person is understood and because you are understood, true engagement will happen and is happening. Yes. True engagement, true collaboration will happen and is happening because that understanding is there.
Yeah, so it's a matter of how can people bring their authentic self to work, right?
Yeah, and be respected for it, right? Like,
yeah,
they don't have to be, they don't have to, how do I want to put this? They feel free to give of themselves just as they are. Exactly. Like their true strengths and their true traits, like they're free and safe to give that to you.
Yeah, and then I've benefited so much by understanding that they are different, right? I think everybody goes through the journey to be able to have empathy for the other. to understand that not everybody is the same, right? So if I said, oh, my salespeople have to be, they have to know everything to the detail, for example. Not everybody is that detailed, right? Or I could expect, for example, my team doesn't ask for guidance from me. I would just expect, being them senior, I would just expect them to go and do things on their own and not come for guidance, but they report back to me. They just keep me informed. But then, even not everybody is the same, right? Just that recognition, to have that empathy, really brings something else to the table. And then you can also be, everybody's open, everybody's authentic, they're accepted as they are, and they bring their best to the table then, because they're not really scared of being judged all the time, right? And then they bloom. It's better that way, right? Being vulnerable together, fighting the fight together. Everybody brings whatever they can bring to the table, right? It doesn't mean we leave accountability aside, we let everyone do whatever, right? But just having that at the bottom, like a foundation of the team, really, really, really helps. And then also me knowing my own design really helps me as a manager as well, right? For example, I'm an advisor and I should be recognized and invited to share my thoughts, right? Otherwise, I would be seen as some know-it-all who is just, and then if I just offered some advice or feedback, people not necessarily will take it, right? Now, with my team, I sit in a position of privilege because I'm a manager, for example. They would take my feedback, but do they take it at their heart? Do they really listen to it is the thing, right? That I care for. Because if I want to give feedback or my perspective to my team, I do it for their learning, for their own growth, right? That's how I can contribute as a manager to my team. So right now, what I do is, if I have feedback, if I see something is happening with a team member and I need to provide feedback, I never give it on the go. I don't, right? So I have these one-on-one set with my team. And these are times where we kind of talk something out of the business, right? Day-to-day business, sales partners, we talk about those all the time, right? We're a very busy team delivering on our deliverables all the time and the KPIs and our revenue. But then I set aside these one-on-ones where we're not allowed to speak about business. This is about growing the person, them giving feedback to me and me giving feedback to them. It's a two-way conversation. So if I have something important and I want to give this feedback to this person in my team, I'll hold it to my one-on-one. Because you know what usually happens? They'll come in and says, Banu, do you have any feedback for me? And that is my invitation to give my feedback to them, and then it will sink in and they'll get it, right? So the important things, this is how I manage with my team, for example, and it's helped me a lot, right? I didn't know that before, and I was offering free advice. Advisors kind of have a bird eye view around everything, and they came here to be guides, right? It's in their, that's why they're here. So they see things, and then, but you can see the thing, but if you offer your advice without being invited, it won't go in, right? So usually it's refused. But managing it this way has immensely helped me, right? They take it so well now. So
yeah, so another phenomenal example, Banu. And one of the things that I really like about what I heard is that, and again, I go back to this book all the time. It's called It's the Manager. And in there, it talks about the workers of today and the workers of the future. They don't want management. In fact, they won't tolerate it. Like, they'll straight up leave the company. If they sniff out that great, this person's going to be here to try to control me and doesn't understand me, doesn't see me, doesn't respect my design, my gifts, all of that, they'll leave. So leaders of today need to know this. And leaders, if you're watching, here it is right here from Banu. She's using this in the way that the workers of today and the workers of the future want. And that is, they really want a coach. And they want ongoing conversations. They don't want a 6-year review or a 1-year review to wait to have all the conversation. The other thing that I like about what you talked about is, so leaders, they struggle with being the leader that they are, right? How they were made. Instead, what I see in so many leaders is a leader reads a book and they inherit those things in the book from whomever wrote the book. And they try to put those out, even if it's inauthentic, right? So, and no fault, I'm not faulting them. This is just what the habits that we've seen up until now. And so with this information that we have, that you have, and that you're putting into application today, you are being the leader that you are. You're not being anything else. And so in that, what I find to be joyous and beautiful, because work can be joyous and it can be beautiful. It doesn't have to be drudgery, right? It doesn't have to be all the negative things that we think about work sometimes, is that your team is seeing the real you. They're not seeing some mental manufactured version, trained in version of Banu. They're getting the real you. And again, going back to the subject of talent optimization, which includes diversity, inclusion, engagement, and collaboration. When a leader shows up as themselves and nothing else, that's when true engagement, true collaboration, true diversity, true inclusion can happen. And I happen to feel like that's when there might have been production happening over here, but real production, what the team really authentically can create and produce together, happens.
Exactly. Yep.
Pardon my dog jumping on the bed, by the way. She's just kind of helping herself, but I'm going to ignore her.
Yeah, we're used to cats walking around, children walking into the meetings, right? I think we learn to tolerate that, which is great, right? I think one of the good things about the situation we're going right now is that I think business world saw the human side of the workforce, right? So you might be a manager at work, but you have children at home. So I think we all knew that, but the world were treated differently. Now it's all together, right? It's okay for a child to come into a customer meeting while I'm, having it, and then it's tolerated now, which is great, right? I think it brought more vulnerability, more openness to the workplace in that sense, right? Mm-hmm. And then thinking about, because we've discussed a lot around leadership, I think, there are a lot of good models around leadership too, right? For example, there is the situational leadership. There's the SL2 model, for example, that we also have adapted where I work. And there we talk about being able to coach or guide a person depending on where they are in their journey, right? Some don't mm-hmm. require any guidance. They'll do their work. With them, you want to help grow them, for example. But then some will require a lot of direction if they're very new and they need a lot of coaching or guidance even to the detail. So it's a matter of the leader taking a step back, looking at the people, and it's not just like putting people into silos, because somebody who's very experienced and in a very high level grade that don't require much guidance, you could give them a new task, or they could be something new could come up and they would require guidance, right? That's what situational leadership is all about. So it's a matter of looking at the situation and being able to provide the correct guidance and coaching to your coworker or to your employee, so they could really perform good in that sense. So I think with the BG5, it's similar in that sense, that by looking at their design and what you are asking them to do, you can actually provide better guidance to your people. For example, in BG5, we look at the group penta, right? You could put all your employees into a penta, and then there are 12 skills that team will have. And when there's a team together, those skills get called out. So there's like a sales, planning, accounting. There are 12 skills that all teams should have. And people contribute, and it's like the penta pulls out those strengths from those people. And then when you look at somebody's chart, some people, if they don't have their upper and lower strengths, and if somebody doesn't have the upper strengths, they usually require a lot of guidance. The lower penta strength people usually will need to be directed. They don't do these things on their own, right? And I was amazed. I looked at my team on the software. I'm looking at my team Penta, and I'm looking at the people. I have some very senior people in my team, like 17 years of work, salespeople. And when I first began, I would expect them to require little guidance, right? Lots of work experience, so they should be able to perform on their own. But then, like, I had one person, for example, that didn't fit into that. He wasn't able to do it on his own. And then I noticed in his chart, he doesn't have any upper Penta strength. He has the lower one. So by design, he requires to be guided into things. And then with all the experience he has, he can definitely perform well. But then I thought, and this was like an aha moment. I said, okay, I need to tap into providing more guidance to get him started, and then he can continue. For example, he can respond to whatever feels right for him, and he can continue there. So that was an aha moment, right, for me.
Mm-hmm.
And now I kind of look at it. I look at people's charts to see if I can guide them better according to their design. Right?
That's awesome. So for those of you that are listening, what Banu is talking about is something that is truly revolutionary. Because again, and I talk about the other assessments, but I only do that so that each of you that are watching this has something to compare it to. Me, myself, I've seen all the assessments. I've done them all, and I've done them several times because I wanted to see what consistency or continuity that they provided. And then on some of them, they weren't consistent because of how I felt on that day, right? There was never pure objectivity, so to speak. And so that's one differentiator. But back to the Penta and the revolutionary aspect of this, the Penta technology that is used within the BG5 Human Design for Work and Career System is able to show a leader, just like Banu was talking about, not only the individual dynamics of each individual on the team, but then how they come together and how they get called out naturally. So Banu doesn't have to call this out. There's nothing that she does. There's nothing that the world does. This happens naturally without anyone's awareness. It happens. It's not, and no one even has to worry about it. It just happens. And it can't be, it can't be controlled. It's not like it can be turned on and turned off. It just happens. And so Banu is able to look at her team and see within an individual, again, so we've looked at the team and how the energy comes together or not. And then looked at when an individual steps into a group, how their design might change. Not change, but like certain traits might get called out and then some won't. That's revolutionary because within organizations, whether it's Microsoft or Facebook or Google or name one, doesn't matter. You have this gigantic organization, but then when you break it down, there's divisions, there's departments, and then within those departments are small groups of 3 to 5 people that could usually comprise either a scrum or there's all kinds of different vernacular out there, but it's usually groups of 3 to 5, right? And, Banu is able to take this technology and again, use it with her team to understand as a group how all of this comes together. No other system has been able to do this before. It's always been dealing with the individual and then trying to train that individual to work with the group, but still not knowing the group dynamic that can't be seen, has never been seen before until BG5. Now Banu can see this and guide her team in a more effective way. So I love the Penta information, and I'll tell you why. And so I think that COVID has kind of helped usher in BG5 in a way, right? Because where we were all reporting to work and we were still in these groups, now we're distributed. Now we're remote more, but we're working in smaller groups more often. And I think that this BG5 information, not just for leaders, but for individual contributors as well, is going to help make that transition easier and better and help organizations understand that it's not just a big organization that's powerful, it's this group of 3 to 5 people and understanding that dynamic across the organization.
Yeah. So I think like the number one thing that leaders really have to do is bring out the best in their people, right?
Mhm.
And it takes effort, not effort, because we are socialization, or in BG5 terms, we would call it conditioning, right? The moment you're
Mhm.
born into the family you're born into, or the you know, wherever, which part of the world you're in, right? There's a culture you're born into and things that are taught to you. And you get socialized, right? There are norms that are acceptable. There are things that are not acceptable. And it differs based on wherever you are. And then in BG5, we would call this the conditioning. And because people get the conditioning, not everybody is really aligned to their true self.
Right.
And the moment people can discover their true nature, the moment they can find out about their design, and if they're able to align themselves to their true self, that's when they are really able to bring the best out of themselves, right?
For sure.
And I've definitely benefited so much from it myself, looking at my design. That's why I became an enthusiast about this as well, because it's helped me so much. And things will happen very easily, right? Without resistance, if you're aligned to your true nature.
Right. Yeah. So I think that this is a great point to end off our conversation. And so for those of you that are watching, you've now seen how BG5 not only can impact an individual, as Banu said, it's dramatically affected her life. This information has an exponential effect. And that is why I geek out about this, if you will. Banu's been able to be a better leader for not two, but for her team. And in return, that individual is going to have a better day. They're going to go home and they're going to take that home with them. It's going to affect their family dynamic. And then it just ripples out, much like if you were to throw a pebble in the middle of a pond, the water ripples out. Microsoft has got to be super happy about the fact that Banu found this, because they get a better leader, they get better teams, they get better engagement, and so on. Now, Banu is not only affecting people inside of Microsoft, she's also teaching a course that's coming up in January. In preparation for that, she's going to be putting together a special webinar that I want to invite anyone who's watching to come and check out. The agenda is still kind of being thought through, but I can promise you, if you decide to attend this webinar, you will not be sorry. You will be impressed. You'll get to hear further information about how BG5 can impact your life and how it can impact the business world. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, all of us, unless we're rich, right, and lucky, and or won the lottery or having a big inheritance, most of us are going to spend about 70% of our lives while we're awake at work. So we need to get this right. It can be joyous, like I said before, it can be beautiful, but it has to count. It has to work. And that's the reason that the guy that developed human design wanted to bring BG5 out into the work world, because if we can't get our material survival correct, it's not going to be very much fun. So I wanted to invite all of you to just continue to pay attention to what we're doing here. Banu's got an awesome class offering coming up in January. And for some of you, it's the perfect timing. And for some of you, it may not be correct, but I would just, the one thing that I would invite all of you to do is to show up to this webinar where we go into further depth. We talk more about this, and then you'll get to see if this is something that you want to pursue further, either for yourself or for business or whatever, but you'll get to see for yourself. And so with that, Banu, I want to thank you again for giving me another opportunity to have a great conversation with you. You know, I love working with leaders. You're a leader and you have so much to offer, so much to give. So I'm always excited to have these conversations with you. And you know, as an advisor, you're here to guide others. And so I appreciate you guiding every one of us and guiding your team, but mostly guiding the people that are watching this video right now through your passion.
Yes, thank you for having me, Rob. It's always great to be here. And I truly believe that this knowledge can really help everyone at their own level with their teams and at large. And I will continue doing my best to disseminate the information as much as possible. That's why I started teaching it too, so I could really touch more lives and make it better for everyone. Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Yep, you bet. Thanks, Banu.
Thank you. Bye-bye.